first to say that we would like to remind all attendees that this session is being recorded. If you would like to pose a question to our speakers, or as this is a workshop, we of course also hope that you will be very active in the chats later on. Please use our Q&A feature. We will also post questions there and you will see that. And this is located at the bottom of your Zoom window. And as this is a workshop, as I said, we of course are looking forward to all participants contributing. If you would like to stay silent, you're of course also welcome to still join this session and listen to the other participants and the speakers of this session. I would like to say if you would like to say something, you can use the raise hand options or also unmute yourselves later on in the breakout rooms. And we will also have shared Etherpad documents where you can then contribute. But your video will remain off. But all attendees will be able to see your names when you are unmuted. So let me start with the workshop now, and I'm excited to introduce you to our speakers. They will introduce themselves in a second. And I would like to suggest that we all say who we are, where we are at the moment, and why we are excited to be in this workshop. And I'm seeing already that there are a lot of people contributing in the chat. I would also like all the participants to answer these questions. Where are you, who are you, and why are you excited to be in this workshop? So I'm Renata, I work at Kiron. I'm in Germany at the moment, and I'm excited to collaborate with so many people all over the world in this next hour. Let's go on with Niall.
Hi everyone, my name is Niall Deng. I'm originally from South Sudan, but I was born and raised in Ethiopia. I now live in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. I'm a media student and I try to use the power of communication to change how people think about refugees and help shape narrative around the refugee crisis. I'm excited to be part of this conference because I firmly believe that refugees should be involved in conversation about issues that affect them, and that we cannot find an effective solution to some of the challenges the refugees are facing if we do not bring them to the table as part of the solution.
Julia.
Hello, hi everyone. I'm Julia Zaredine. I'm advocacy lead for urban refugees and I'm actually based in France. Thank you for organizing this collaborative workshop. Really excited to speak about the narrative shift in the power balance in the refugee response, since Urban Refugees is an NGO that is supporting refugee-led organizations to become the first stakeholders in the urban refugee response. Thank you.
Maisa.
Good afternoon, everyone, or maybe good morning, because I see people are from different parts of the world right now. Very nice to see all of you. So my name is Maisa Archis, and I'm here in the name of the Young Republic, of which I'm the co-founder. The Young Republic is a refugee working with is a refugee co-led organization working for the political participation of young refugees. And today I am looking very forward to discuss with all of you how we can challenge the current narratives and create new narratives about refugees' participation.
Now I have a question maybe to Julia. Was Jean-Paul, our fourth speaker, able to join? We had some problems.
I think he's still not able to join. He's trying to join with another email address, but maybe I can present him briefly. So Jean-Paul is the executive director of a refugee-led organizations called AID, supporting young refugees in Nairobi. And he's also the chairman of the Global Refugee-led Network African Chapter, which is a network led by refugees advocating for refugee self-representation in the responses. And he's also chairman of another refugee-led network called East Africa Refugee-led Organizations Network. So I hope Jean-Paul will be able to join in a minute.
We hope that he will be able to join. We will go into the first part of our session where all our speakers will give a short input to set the stage for our breakout rooms afterwards. So we will have 15 minutes now where you get some input from our experts here in the room, and then we are excited to also hear from the participants and to collaborate with you in our breakout rooms afterwards. So I give the stage to the speakers.
Thank you, Renata. Yeah, and as Renata introduced, we will have different parts during the workshop today. So the first part, we will try to identify some of the narrative that we are facing today within the NGO and civil society work we are doing in relation to refugee issues and refugee rights. And Niall, we will be both all of us giving short inputs, and then we will be welcoming yours if you have something to add, of course, before moving on thinking a little bit more forward and how to change the narrative. I give the mic to Niall to start, and yeah, you have 2 minutes to tell us about the first challenge you are facing.
Thank you so much, Maisa. So today, stories about the displaced are told through the eyes of external observers, humanitarian agencies, journalists, and the academy. And this is leaving the original voice silent. I believe that refugee self-representation and authentic storytelling is key to building thriving and vibrant communities. Stories can take away dignity or restore it. The Western narrative of refugee, which is now becoming the holy and the most dominant narrative of refugees, has the most dangerous effect of reducing human beings into mere tales of suffering and devastations. The stories can inform policies, stimulate understanding, and create a sense of urgency in people that will drive them to action. And then they have a significant role in achieving true power and agency for individuals and communities. That is why I believe that it is very crucial that refugee youth are empowered to tell their stories in their own words, because it is one thing to read or hear about someone, and it is a different thing to hear from them directly. The images of victimhoods and suffering, trapped refugees and people like myself, and limit our capacities to transform our communities in so many ways. These images portrays refugees as passive recipients of aid and handout, which is completely different from the reality on the ground. This narrative talks only about the parts of me that is a refugee, but I'm also a professional and an expert in one or two things. I'm a friend, a partner, and a tennis neighbor place to call home. For example, in Kakuma, there are like more than 20 refugee-led organizations helping service the need of 190,000 refugees that we have in the camp from more than 10 different nationalities. And we have 2,000 refugee businesses that are helping to generate up to 56 million US dollars annually, which is going to the local economy. And it is very crucial in this aspect that refugees are empowered to tell their stories and bring about change in their communities. Because given a chance, refugees have so much that they can offer to their communities, and they can contribute in so many ways and also help local economies grow. So it is crucial that we have narrative that are co-created by refugees, and that refugees, are part of the decision-making tables. Thank you.
Thank you, Niall, for your input. I will carry on sharing one or two features of the current narratives that in our context we found challenging to the work we do for refugee rights. And here I want to speak that sometimes when we are speaking about narrative, we tend to focus too much on the anti-migration and anti-refugees narratives that emerge. But I want to also underline the challenges that can emanate from the narratives produced by pro-migration NGOs, activists, and the pro-migration sphere, so our allies in a way. And here I want to, actually we'll start probably in a way from one of the points you shared, Niall, which is the charity-based narrative of refugees programs and projects. So that many NGOs and associations do frame the work they do for refugees as charity, where refugees are only the passive receivers of this aid rather than partners and rather than persons. it comes like into, like, we help refugees because we are the good people. And the problem with that is that from one side, it omits the human rights part, because we, like, refugees are humans who have rights, and we are speaking about human rights. So it's not something out of our good heart as NGOs, civil societies, activists to do, to work for refugees' rights. And from the other side, it can also be very problematic in terms of the human dignity of people, that we are omitting their experiences and just seeing them as victims. And here I'm also, coming back to the victimhood you already talked about, Niall. And what I would add, and this is particular to the context we work in as the Young Republic, because we are working with the European host countries, which is Eurocentrism in the narratives that are produced with the NGOs working with the refugees, where there is from one side a lack of recognition of all the experiences the refugees live outside of Europe, and the focus starts really within the borders of Europe. So the main focus starts at the borders of Europe, either at the sea or the violence at the land borders and so on. And we do have this, in this narrative, faceless masses of refugees arriving. We don't see the human parts, the experiences, and we also don't tackle the root causes, nor the responsibility of the country. So what we advocate with when we are only very Eurocentric is eventually to open borders or to facilitate reception procedures, rather than looking at root causes, how these countries are also responsible sometimes in creating or reinforcing systems that are making refugees leave, with some countries selling arms to some of the dictatorships and so on and so forth. So I will just end that with this narrative. What is happening, even if it is good-hearted and with good intention, it can be very harmful, because it creates a perception of refugees as others, as different. And this othering, in terms of like not equal in rights, not equal in experiences, not equal in position, is one of the main challenges, I think, to the work we are doing today. And I will give the, like, Jean-Paul is not yet with us, is he? I don't see him.
Unfortunately not. We are still trying to.
Okay. Then I will give the floor to Julia, and really hope that Jean-Paul will be able to join in the next couple of minutes.
Thank you so much. So the main narrative urban refugees is facing is also the main challenge to our work, and also the reason for our work. So I'm talking about unbalanced relations of power between international stakeholders of the refugee response and local refugee-led organizations. This is produced by unequal access to funding and resources, unequal partnerships, and mental barriers. So within the global refugee sector, the power is still centralized, which, like the global refugee sector, despite commitments for meaningful refugee participation to the design and implementation of responses, is not yet spinning up the efforts to localize and democratize how help to refugees is delivered. And so when I'm talking about the refugee architecture, the global refugee sector, I'm talking about NGOs, international and local NGOs, but also the other actors, such as donors, governments, UN agencies, and municipalities in the case of urban refugees. So it is the combined practices of these actors from the refugee sectors that conveys a perception of refugees as inexperienced, as easy to manipulate, but also maybe a fear of their politicization and opposition to the protection regime. And that is not recognizing them as key frontline actors, even if they have a proven potential to be quicker, more efficient, more cost-effective, more local, and with more lasting and higher impact, as we saw during the last COVID-19 response. So there is a systemic failure to change this narrative, and the real question of motivation from the refugee architecture that condemns refugee-led organizations and refugee-led initiatives not to grow, even though they are in the best position to meet the needs of their communities. So I would have loved to give the floor to Jean-Paul to talk about that and to deepen my point, but is he here? If he's not, I can continue and develop.
Yes.
So, yeah, so the refugee-led organizations, as the one that Jean-Paul is heading, are all over the world, and especially in the urban areas worldwide. And so they are the first and last responders to the crisis because they are the one that knows the community the best. They come from the communities, and they are really able to answer to the problematics that the community face. And this is something that we saw when the humanitarian regime is stopped, for example, by the lockdown measures during the COVID. The refugee-led organizations didn't stop to continue deliver services to their community and to collect information and to spread information, fight against bad information, and to report all the data to the big NGOs, etc., etc. And recently, with the emergence of the global refugee-led network, there has been really a movement of refugee self-representations that has been activated to fight against this centralization of the power in the refugee architecture and to advocate for a shift of mentality, a shift of perception, and a better redistribution of power and decision-making within the refugee architecture. And yes, that's it basically.
Thank you so much, Julia, and thank you for also bringing some points from Jean-Paul that I really hope he will be able to join and will be given the floor even later on the session to go more and join you. So as you said, for now we try to identify some, and for sure not all, the current narratives that are challenging the work for refugee rights and the work of NGOs for refugee. Is there, like, we identified victimhood and suffering that Niall spoke about. The refugees are only seeking aid narrative. I have spoken about the Eurocentrism and the charity based instead of human rights based work. We spoke about inequality, and Julia spoke a lot about these perceptions of unexperienced refugees and refugee-led organizations, so which is being a challenge to these associations and initiatives to grow, and also the lack of inclusion of the refugee-led organizations. I have also seen that in the chat, some other people spoke about, the language and European speaking experiences and so on. Is there something else that some of you would like to add in terms of challenging narratives that we may face? If not, I would suggest that we move on thinking more about what kind of narrative we want to create instead of these current narratives of victimhood, of inequality, of charity-based, and so on and so forth. And for that, we will suggest a little tool for you is to think about this narrative, like this new narrative we want to create, because this is the objective of this session, to try to think together what kind of narrative we want to create and how we will create it. The first step is really, what is it? What are its features? So what we want in it instead of victimhood, instead of inequality, etc. And for that, I invite you to go to, I will share my screen first, so it will be easy.
And I will share a link in the chat.
Yeah, so please, go to www.menti.com. It doesn't need any download or anything. You can go with your phone or laptop or whatever device you are in, and you can enter the code 874456, and you will have the possibility to have 3 entries, which are features of the new narrative that we want to create. So you can just write them down and it will appear on the screen. So try to keep the 3 entries in there. and I will give you, everyone 2-3 minutes to connect and write down the features. Yes, it is anonymous, like no names will appear. You don't even need to enter your name if you go to the website menti.com. The idea is to give features, so it can be, for example, where refugees are agents, so we can speak about human rights-based narrative. I'm just giving some examples, but please feel free to have entries. And I invite everyone to do that. We are already having some of the words starting to appear, so. Libby Lynn is raising the hand.
Hi, I went to the site and I went to the wrong site. I had to sign up. So my question is answered. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You can also post the words in the chat if you want. If you're, for instance, on your mobile phone and opening another window is tricky, you can, if you want to contribute, also use the chat if you want.
Yeah, we can have 2 more minutes for everyone also to make sure they enter theirs. If there is something you want to like underline, even if it appears, you can write it again. So like this is also the idea that we have like the bigger words are probably the words that were entered more than once. I think the board is not moving anymore, so I believe everyone already entered their the features they want to see in the alternative narrative to create about refugees. And the biggest, it's still changing, but I will keep going maybe through the main like the main points. We have human rights, that is one of the biggest features, so most of the people repeated it. This is why it's getting bigger. We have dignity also, experienced, change makers, skilled, and agents. We do have, okay, I will try now to read while it's moving. Resilience and knowledge and embodiment of resilience. So the resilience, the entrepreneurship and being entrepreneurial, education, respect, diversity, the contribution of the people, same rights, they are active agents of change, unleashed potential, the history of the diaspora, community members, agents of their lives, innovation, collaboration. So I believe I went through the main ones. I don't know, but yeah, at least we have the biggest features, I think, which are human rights, change makers, skilled agents, experience, and dignity. So I believe the respect of dignity. So what we suggest for you and for us all right now is to try to keep these features in our minds when we will think about how can we create this narrative. What can we do as NGOs, as activists, as people, whoever we are here in the session, to do to create this narrative? How can we create it? It can be tips, ideas, or some practices you have done or you are aware of that were successful in creating this alternative narrative. So how can we create it? For that, we will go in breakout rooms, and we will have some time to discuss and create a little bit like some of the ideas. How can we create this narrative?
So
sorry,
yes,
go.
So we will now have 3 breakout rooms where the 3 speakers will be your hosts, and everybody will be randomly assigned. That's kind of like how we have to do it here now, because we don't have that much time, to one of the breakout rooms where you will, together with the speakers, discuss how we can change this narrative. So we are very excited to hear your ideas. Again, if you do not want to contribute actively, feel free to still be in their rooms. We also respect that, but we are excited to have a lot of ideas from some participants, of course. We will now go into the rooms. After 13 minutes, you will be back into the room. Maybe the host can keep a little bit the time that you're not surprised and kicked out. So I'm looking forward to see you back here in 13 minutes. Let's go. So welcome back to the panel. I'm not sure how many people are back already, whether we have all rooms. But I see Maisa here, she was in a different room, Niall is here, he was in another one. And if we also have, Julia here as well, then I think we are complete. Yes, I've seen Julia.
Yes, we are complete. We are complete. We completed.
Thank you so much for these sessions. I would like, maybe Julia, you would like to start with a wrap up from what you've learned, from what people contributed in your.
We don't hear you, Julia.
Yes, sorry. What we all agreed is that refugee-led organizations are the key point to understand the needs of their community, and that they need to be supported and to receive the attention of the international NGOs and the international donors and institutional partners within the refugee response sector, because they are in the best place to pursue efforts of enhancing the qualities of life of the urban refugees. And we all agreed that support is needed in terms of funding, equal partnerships, and also developing the direct capacity building programs for refugee-led organizations. And so we shared contacts together to move on advocacy towards donors, to push for developing capacity building programs for refugee-led organizations to enhance the localization efforts.
Thank you. Maisa, do you want to go on?
Yes, sure. Yeah, so I will go with the main points we went on in the group about how can we create an alternative narrative. It started really with creating a common language and underlining also the challenges to integration, understanding the context of forced migration and how people are not prepared for this forced migration. So a lack of integration or language learning doesn't mean really a lack of will to be part of the host society, and understanding the bigger context. So highlighting refugees' contributions was seen to be an important part in creating this alternative narrative. So we look at what they are doing, what kind of initiatives they are doing, how people are making their way. Working with media was also another point that was suggested as important to be done by NGOs, so that we collaborate with media to be sure, to be sure that they portray refugees in a positive, non-stigmatizing language. So it's about really using the words, also using people seeking protection instead of illegal migrants, and about the wording they use as media. And also it's also about something introspective for the NGOs and activists themselves, to be sure about the wordings we are using in our communication and in our work. Not invisibilizing the realities of refugees was something also important, the realities and context, and to make sure that whatever we do, we frame it in a human rights-based approach, not out of pity or out of charity and so on. So these are the main points that were discussed, and I want to thank everyone in the little group who contributed.
Thank you so much. I will share my screen, and Niall will then give you an overview. Let's see whether I have the rights. Yes. I hope you can, yeah, Niall.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Renata. We are like a really participatory breakout session. It was more focused on seeing refugees as professional, as people who have something to contribute. And it's more of, when we see refugees as professional, we are able to see them as partners and work together with them, to brainstorm solutions to some of the challenges, to have them in decision-making tables, and also recognize the skills and talents, before fleeing their home countries, because these are people who have lives before, they live normal life like all of us. And when they leave, they say, you go away with your education. So they come with the skills, they come with talents that can, contribute to the host community. And also one aspect that was mentioned that I think is very crucial is also hire refugees. So I believe that if more businesses, if the NGOs, big NGOs and the governments hire refugees, and then through this we'll have refugees, having influence in this system, and then they'll be able to change narratives and, bring about change from within. And then also see refugees, see the term refugees not as an identity, as I have seen that, it is being portrayed, but as a legal status, because this is something that no one wants to stay with forever. And this is something that no one chooses. It is not a name that is written on anyone's back. Tomorrow, I can, live a normal life like all of us. So it is crucial that we see it just as a legal status that can go away anytime. And then one thing also that was mentioned that I think is really, important is that we need to work more with refugees and not for refugees. And I think this is something that I tell people, including UNHCR and all the agencies that I've been able to work with in different aspects, that, we want you to work with us, not for us, because, you don't come to us and tell us, this is your problem and this is the solution. No, tell us, this is the challenge that you are facing. And can we sit down and try to find a solution? Because we understand our challenges better. We understand, what is facing us. And we believe that if we are able, to sit down with you and try to bring about a solution, and then we'll be able to come up with a more effective one than you, sitting in your office and then coming to the camp and saying, this is a challenge, this is a solution. And then another aspect, is working with refugees more, especially in the media and academia. And I believe that, academia has a role to play in this, especially in highlighting and, in research. For example, there are many incredible refugee-led organizations that are doing, a lot of work across the world. They are making huge impact, but their work is not on the spotlight. No one know about the impact they are making. And, if we have the academia stepping in, doing more research, trying to bring the work to the spotlight, I think through this, we'll be able to have, more people coming together, their best practices from refugee-led organizations that can be amplified, that can be, scaled to reach more people, and that, can be even, make us national policies. And I believe that, that can bring you change. So this was just a summary of what we're able to discuss. And thank you very much for those who contributed and for sharing your experiences and thoughts and, being part of a cause that I truly believe in. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Niall.
Yeah, then I guess we got the contributions of all the group and this of all of you who are here. Is there maybe something someone would like to add at the end before going into the concluding remarks? I guess no. Then maybe we can have a final round to have the concluding remarks. And then I wanted to check with Renata if we'll be able to share the collaborative document with everyone who attended the session.
Yes, we can do that.
Great. Then you will all receive the cloud we co-created and the collaborative document, putting all the ideas of the three groups together. And to conclude the session, because we are in the last part, I will give the word maybe to Julia to start. To conclude actually, but to start the conclusion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maisa. So firstly, I wanted to thank all the people that were discussing in the group. This was really interesting. And for the concluding remark, I may be doing a bit of a publicity for the advocacy work that Urban Refugees is doing towards donors now to develop capacity building programs for refugee-led organizations in urban areas. since most of the refugees are actually in urban areas of middle to low income countries. And so I shared my email in the chat box. So if you want to be part of this movement of influence, please come and join me. And yes, it is really empowering and full of sense to see all of you coming together to push for a change in the mentalities and change in the narrative to a more localized and democratized response, humanitarian response for refugees. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Julia. Would you like to go for the concluding remarks, Niall?
Yes, I would first appreciate all those who turn up. Leaving your engagements and everything aside is really encouraging. Now we are in the middle of a crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think, this is a time that we have seen that refugees can be on the front line. Across the world, we have seen them, working on the front line to make sure we are all safe. And I think this is a very important message that everyone has a role to play. Every action counts. And that is why it is crucial that we leave no one behind. Looking at COVID-19, I don't think this is about refugees. I don't think this is about vulnerable people. This is about all of us, because if you look at the bigger picture, we are not all safe until we are all safe. Just to conclude my thoughts, I'll send back the same message that don't look at my side that is a refugee, but look at everything about me. See me as a friend, see me as a partner, see me as a professional, someone we can work together, to bring about change in the community. And one advice I always give to people, with so many images circulating on media, is that try really to inform yourself about this cause. I always advise people, don't know about refugees from the media or from the newspaper. Go to your next door who is a refugee, try to talk with them, try to connect with them on human basis. I believe that when you build those connections, when you try to get to know refugees better, and then we'll be able to get, to bring about, these narratives that we are talking about, to see refugees as change makers, to see them as people with something to contribute, to see them as professional. So it is more about informing yourself. I think that is the first step that we all need to do. Try really to inform yourself. And don't talk just about refugees, but talk with refugees. I think those are two different things. So we should not talk much about refugees, but we should talk more with refugees. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day.
Thank you so much, Niall. And I will just underline again the responsibility of all of us in creating the narrative. So the best intentions, unfortunately, are not enough sometimes if we do, because sometimes with whatever actions we do, we may reinforce negative narratives. And this, I think I will just underline that we are all responsible on the narratives we are creating. And it is very important to keep in mind equality and how can we work with other human beings, whoever we are working with, in an equal basis. So this is my last words, I would say, and I will give back the floor to Renata to conclude this session. I believe we're just ending now.
Yes, thank you also from my side. That was a really interesting session. I think Niall just summarized it really nicely in the end. We see in the chat that people are asking for the summary of the sessions. We will share those also on YouTube. This session was recorded, and we will also, if this is possible, if we have the email addresses from the people in this session, share the documents that we all worked on together, to also share that with you. Also, if you want to share, I see now that there are people in the chat, there are the links to these documents. If you want to copy them already, Andreas, my colleague, just shared them here. So you can already now have a look at those. Maybe that's the easiest. And yes, we will, if you would like to stay in contact with Niall, that his Twitter account was also just shared. I highly recommend that as well, as much as the other speakers' Twitter accounts or other social media accounts, to stay in contact. Thank you so much, everybody, all the speakers. That was very, very interesting. Thank you, Maisa, Niall, and Julia. Thanks to all the participants. And I hope we see each other in other sessions today or soon again in social media or somewhere at a conference. Thanks so much.